in 1 second. Whoa, just having a little trouble here. Okay, here we go. We're ready to go.
Perfect. Can everybody see the slide? Have I broken it yet?
It looks good, and I'm gonna, it looks great. I'm gonna go ahead and give a quick introduction. Welcome to the 9th annual Wild Wisconsin Winter Web Conference. I'm Leah Langby from the IFLS Library System, and I'm moderating the Public Services track along with Joy Schwartz from the Winnifox Library System. So you made it this far, and we're really glad you're here. Our presenters for this session are Emily Sanders from the Public Library in Williams Bay, Kat Mullins from the Milwaukee Public Library, and Alicia Woodland from the Public Library in Wisconsin Rapids. And they will be discussing teen engagement. Okay, team, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Emily Sanders, and I am from Williams Bay, Wisconsin at Barrett Memorial Library.
And I am Alicia Woodland. I'm from the McMillan Memorial Library. I'm the Young Adult Services Manager.
And I'm Kat Mullen. I'm a librarian too in Youth Services at the Milwaukee Public Library in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
So today, we are really excited to share with you. As we were putting this together, we were kind of talking about how do you talk about teen engagement in this this current climate that we're living in, because admittedly things are different, and we were talking about thinking how to be most effective, and it didn't feel very effective to talk about all the things we were doing before, because as you all know, every day is today's normal. There really isn't this overarching like this is what normal looks like anymore. Every day is a little bit different, which means that every day you are faced with lots of challenges. And so these are the things that we're going to be talking about today. We'll share a little bit about ourselves, what we were doing before the pandemic, the challenges that had arisen in that pandemic era, and then what we're doing now to kind of move forward. We do have a nice little chat there. We really found that as we were discussing all of these things, reflecting and counting our wins and patting ourselves on the back, it was really therapeutic and helpful to kind of ground ourselves in what we're doing. And we really wanted to extend the invitation to all of you at home that you would be able to go on that journey with us. So whether you want to engage in the chat or write down on a piece of paper, please do follow along with us and reflect on your own journey, because everyone's a little bit different, but you all have faced these really what felt like insurmountable challenges, and you're doing amazing work. And it's kind of hard to pat yourself on the back when you're doing that. So today, this is what we want to do. We want to share, but we also want to give you guys the opportunity to really celebrate yourselves. So with that, I'm going to introduce myself a little bit. So we're going to go right into who we are and who we serve. My name is Emily Sanders, and I have been at my library since 2012. I was originally hired on as a library page, but I spoke teen because I was 19 at the time. I was really close, and we needed somebody to hang out and make sure that the kids who were coming after school were entertained. And that kind of shifted into becoming a teen services coordinator, and then I found my love for libraries. And I found that through being a participant in the Youth Services Institute in 2015. That really taught me so much about libraries and what it means to work in libraries. And then I pursued an associate's degree in library information studies from CVTC. Shout out, it was very, very good. And that kind of brings me to where I'm at right now. I now have a fancy title, and I work in this really wonderful library in Williams Bay. I joke that we are a community with 0 grocery stores, 0 stoplights, but we do have 2 ice cream stores. We've got 25, almost 2,600 people. And then I asked that we talked about the diversity in our communities, because I would have said that I live in a community that is 99% white. But once I really dove in and looked at the statistics through Data USA, I found that there there's about 15% of my community that I'm not really seeing in my library. And that feels really big now that I'm not seeing as many people because of the pandemic, that there was already this part of my community that I wasn't seeing. And now that's even bigger, and just kind of thinking about how to move forward. Barrett Memorial Library, we are a staff of 12, a youth services staff of 2, and our service population is roughly 7,000. Alicia, over to you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'm Alicia Woodland, and I'm going to assume you guys can all read. So the things I'm going to talk about are not necessarily on the screen. I'm just going to expand a little bit more on that. But the first thing I want to talk about is my library. It was built in 1970, as you can see from the picture, that lovely 60s, 70s architecture. And we are in a $2.2 million building project right now to update our 40,000 square footage that we have here in the library to the 21st century. We're expanding our makerspace, creating co-working spaces, having spaces to better serve the evolving needs of our community, which includes parts of Adams, Portage, and Woods County. The picture you're looking at actually shows an old entrance. And just to give you an idea of what kind of library we are, we pivot so much. That is about 3 entrances ago. We no longer even enter from that side of the building because our community's face changed. The way our community saw our library change, we changed our entrance. So that's the kind of library I serve at. Of course, we have 29 staff, as you can see there, and 1 person serving the teens. One thing I would say about our community is that the numbers you're looking at there for percentages of this and that, they aren't directly reflecting Adams or Portage County. That's just the Woods County numbers or the Wisconsin Rapids numbers, because I know we have Ho-Chunk folks that come in here all the time and not many people who come in here all the time. You know, it's not reflected there, but we have them. So a little bit about me. What you see on the screen is pretty much what you get. My middle name could be basically positive flexibility. As you can see from my picture there, I've got fandoms that range from Moomin to Wonder Woman to Totoro to Captain America. And I'm really excited to do this presentation because I'm all about empowerment. I want to empower you guys to go out there and really thrive in this environment. And guess what? Kat wants to tell you a little bit about herself now.
Thank you. So hi again, I am Kat and I work for the Milwaukee Public Library. I started with MPL in the summer of 2016 as a Librarian 1 at the Villard Square branch on the north side of Milwaukee. And after about a year, I was moved to the Central Library Children's Room in downtown Milwaukee. And about a year after that, I became a Librarian 2. Now, those are the titles that the city uses and HR uses, but I choose to use the title of Youth Services Librarian as I serve all youth ages birth to 18, but teen services is kind of where my heart really lies. And when I start talking about MPL, I like to share our vision statement first. So MPL is an anchor institution that helps build healthy families and vibrant neighborhoods, the foundation of a strong Milwaukee. And I know that sounds cliche, and I swear my admin didn't make me share that, but it's truly what MPL strives to be. And it's why I've been here for the entirety of my professional career so far. And so our system itself, we have one central library that you see there on the screen. That's where I currently work, big historic building, as well as 12 branch locations spread out across the city, and even a vending machine library. So we are the largest public library system in Wisconsin. We have over 2.7 million items in our collection, with over 1.5 million government docs in our care as well. So we are a big system, but we have a big community to serve. So the city of Milwaukee's population is almost 600,000. I bet we're even closer to that number as this new census comes around. And our service population is even bigger than that. We're at almost 1 million. We are part of the Milwaukee County Federated Library System, so we serve all of Milwaukee County. And then you can see those demographics on the screen. That's the breakdown of the city. We are a varied and diverse population.
So if you guys can see, we are a small, medium, and large library. And so we're going to jump right into pre-pandemic teen engagement, AKA the good old days. If you see this little chat, this is where we're encouraging everybody to share or write down. We'll ask you questions, but start thinking about what did pre-pandemic teen engagement look like in your library. So in order to kind of get this idea of what teen engagement is, we've got this checklist. And it's not everything, but it's a pretty good overview. So we're striving to break all the stereotypes that exist around libraries.
And we're offering unique experiences not found elsewhere.
We try to make the library more accessible to teens by addressing policy and creating teen-only spaces.
Trying to make connections with kids outside of the library.
And we're making connections with teachers, administrators, and other community leaders. Sorry for stepping on your foot there, buddy.
No problem. So what did teen engagement look like at my small little library? I am in a small community. I've been in my community since 2012. And really my teen engagement strategy was to be there. You know, so I was present at school. I was hanging out at lunches. I would bring my button maker and let the kids make buttons as I kind of chatted with them at their lunches. And then I would bust into classrooms and talk about library activities and offerings and resources. And then that kind of led to that invitation to the after school. Being in a small town, I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but when you are in a really small community, there are not a ton of opportunities for our young people. And so it was really our push and our philosophy that we really wanted to make sure that the teens and the young people in our community knew that they could go to the library and there would be something happening for them every day. They didn't have to come every day, but if they had nothing to do, that the library was always open to them. One of my favorite things that we used to do was something called a regression session, where we would invite teens from grade 6 to 12 to come in and finger paint or play with Play-Doh or do something that would put them back in that, like, I'm a little kid and my world isn't crashing down because of hormones and stress and tests and all of that good stuff. We had a teen advisory board. It was unfortunately slowly dying before the pandemic. Rest in peace, teen advisory board. But we were trying to engage and create ownership of the library, of community, of being part of the civics that go into being a young person in a community that you care about. And finally, we were offering special events once or twice a month, things that they might not have an opportunity to do outside of the library, or if they did, maybe it was expensive or maybe it wasn't like totally accessible. We were trying to really bring accessibility to their interests into our building and trying to build this reputation of being a space that you could come and create and be and exist and it be your own space. So that was teen engagement here at Barrett. It was really about, I am present, I am here, and please come on in. Please feel free to enter this space. Kat?
No problem.
Alicia.
Kat or me, either one. No, I'm kidding. Kat can run with my programs. No, I'm joking. So yeah, unlike other folks here at the Macmillan Memorial Library, we did not have a teen advisory board because when I started in September 2019, yes, just a few months before the pandemic went supernova there, I came into a situation where there hadn't been a teen librarian for months. And there were no established lines of communication. So like Emily, I went out to the schools. I talked to the teens, I talked to the adults, and I created interest groups based on the conversations I had with these folks. And so every program I'm going to talk about today was created by teens. I even created an email and gave it to teens and used social media because that was the only way I could connect with them. So that's how we communicated. That's how we talked. I gave them my email, said, call me anytime, email me anytime, I'm right here. So the first image you're going to see is the gaming programs. There is a strong interest in gaming. The kids here love to game. So what we used to do before the pandemic, we would take over the large meeting room, set up a bunch of Xboxes, PS4, Switches, and put snacks and drinks in the middle of the room and invite all the kids in the community to come and just be with one another, just play together and have a great time. And once everybody was there and had gotten pretty settled, we'd order pizza in. And so we try to encourage them not to make the controllers too greasy, but I did degrease quite a few controllers. That's how it went. And just keep in mind, this is how, this is programming after a drought of no programming for almost about a 9-month section of time there. So we had teen volunteers coming in and helping doing the setup. And we also had some jealous adults sitting at the door wanting to get them in. But we also, I noticed there was a need in the community that wasn't being addressed by anyone. In our area, there's a strong desire for high fashion. And there's almost no clothing stores except for Walmart. So one way to address this is to show people how to make their own clothes. And one way to do this with teens was to simply say, let's start simple, let's start small, let's start knitting. And we had a lot of community interest. This was also volunteer run. We had people in the community, adult volunteers who would come in, get all the supplies, sit down and teach folks how to knit. We gave away free yarn and free needles. Teens loved it. Boys and girls would come in and learn how to knit and walk off going, I can't believe I can make my own clothes. But then we have our anime club. Now, the teens here are a little different than teens I've ever worked with before, because from now on, all the programs I talk about, keep in mind, they didn't want age restrictions. In this case, age restrictions became harmful. We have a theater here in our library where we can watch movies. So we would get the anime club together. We would go watch an anime in the theater, and then we would come out and have pizza and discussion. What I found out was there were 70-year-old women who really wanted to watch that anime, and the teens really wanted to discuss the anime with those 70-year-old women. So we opened it up to everyone and made this an 11 and up program. And so what we would do is get together, watch the movie, come outside, and I would serve the pizza, because even before the pandemic, I was a bit of a germaphobe, so I was taking almost COVID-friendly precautions when it came to the disbursement of pizza and whatnot. And, you know, you go to the bathroom, wash your hands before you pick up a plate. If you want seconds, you get a new plate, that kind of a thing. We were having a great time, but yeah, we were careful. Can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. We also have a lot of cultures here in Wisconsin Rapids, because again, we serve not just Wood County, Adams County, and Portage County, which includes University the University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point. So it was my plan before the pandemic to do a cultural program every month or every other month. But I only got 2 great cultural programs in, including a celebration of Indian culture, and what you can see there in the image, a Chinese New Year celebration. These are very well attended. And the purpose of this program was to allow the kids to share their culture with everyone. Because it would be kind of strange if, you know, someone was playing a traditional Chinese instrument and only teens were allowed to watch them play this instrument. It felt more natural for them to play with their families in front of other folks' families. These programs were attended so well that we had to rotate people out of the rooms. And the kids were able to show off their cultural identity with their friends and their families. It was a great time. Everybody really had a good time coming to these events. The Indian celebration actually became more like a Thanksgiving when we were done. So it wasn't exactly COVID friendly, but people had a great time hanging out. Now our special events, wow, did I learn a lot. I learned that special events are very special to my teens. My first event, as you can see there, that was a special event, was an escape room that we did on October 25th in 2019. I had 70 kids in this escape room, folks. Yeah, 70 kids. It was rough. I was not prepared for that, but it was so much fun. We had taken over bunches of the rooms in the library. We had done lighting, we had sound effects. We even had a big bag that was a piñata that we burst open and candy went flying. Everybody had a good time. We had kids there who had special needs. We had them with their helpers. It was wonderful. We had pizza, pop, lots of volunteers to make this work. And it was a Halloween program that could offend no one. It was a winning combination. We were having the time of our lives. Kat, can you tell us a little bit about what you guys were doing in Milwaukee?
Definitely. So pre-pandemic, kind of due to our size and our resources, MPL was able to do a lot with teens. And I would say since I started, the number of programs offered and the kind of investment in teens in Milwaukee has only gone up. And I would say that 2020 was gearing up to be the biggest and best year yet, of course. So that included weekly and monthly programming at all the branch library locations. Those were typically planned and implemented by that branch's staff. I'm echoing, sorry. But all of the branch libraries have their own young adult serving staff members, so those were planned and implemented by that person. We also have Library Now, which is a partnership with local schools between MPL and the Milwaukee Public School District that provides free digital access to all the library's online resources to every MPS student from 1st to 12th grade. The teens have their own page that they're able to go to and instantly access all of the resources geared specifically towards them. We also offer some big teen programs like our Teen Summer Reading Program called the Teen Summer Challenge, as well as our Teen Job Fair in the spring. That was pretty big as well. And then 2 of the coolest ways that MPL has been able to engage teens would have to be our teen interns. So these are paid positions. It is a job, averages about 10 hours a week, often more in the summer. It's run by our teen education outreach specialist and her team. And they essentially help run the makerspaces, and they help out with teen services system-wide. And then, I may be biased, but I think one of the most successful ways that MPL engages teens is the Teen Advisory Board. That is run by the Teen Advisory Board coordinators, of which I am one, and that is where a lot of my time and energy is spent. So as I said, the Teen Advisory Board coordinators is a group of young adults serving library staff. They were anywhere from 3 coordinators at our smallest and most unsustainable, and up to right now, we have 8 coordinators at our most robust and honestly the easiest. And it's been pretty great. So our tab members are apply via a short application process. So there is no guarantee that they'll be accepted, but to apply, they must be in grades 8 to 12. They have to live in Milwaukee County. And I will mention quickly that tab members can continue into the next year by completing a task or challenge. So overall, we try to have 15 to 16 tab members at a time, understanding that it will probably drop down to anywhere from 10 to 12 consistent members. So pre-pandemic, we would recruit in August. So in 2019, we had 51 applicants, which was fantastic. And that was, I think, a high since I had started. And so once we choose our tab members and they accept, we start our tab year that runs from September to May. We break it down into semesters. So our first semester is September to January, and our second is February to May. We take summers off and give everyone a little bit of a break. And once we have our tab members, what do they get out of it besides helping libraries that they love? So they can earn volunteer credits, and kind of unique to MPL, I think, is that we offer our tab members a stipend. So it's $100 per semester. Right now, it's given to them in the form of a Visa gift card, and they get that if their requirements are met. So pre-pandemic, the requirements included attending 3 of the 4 meetings we hold in person. So there's one a month. They just have to come down to the Central Library and hang out with us for 2 hours. They'd always get food, free dinner. And then they'd have to volunteer at the library an additional 12 hours per semester. So that was really great, but sometimes people wonder why a stipend. So when I started in 2016, tab was kind of floundering. We couldn't really get members to be consistent, and engagement was at an all-time low. So to increase buy-in and participation, we offered stipends to set clear benchmarks and standards for participation, encourage every tab member to play a more equal role rather than having a couple leaders do most of the work. And it kind of increased the prestige of the role. You had to apply, you got something monetary out of it. And that showed that people would really want to follow through. And we got these stipends by asking our friends group for support. So we've done that for the last couple of years. We asked for $200 for 15 members, and then ask for additional money for programming. And that's been great because tab plans, implements, and financially supports some of our biggest programs that have the highest teen engagement, like our teen art contest, our teen job fair, our poetry contest, our big King Day celebration, and they also provide valuable input for our teen summer reading program.
And then everything stopped when the pandemic hit. I mean, we're all thinking about 2020 in the beginning of like, it was going to be our year. I feel like everybody said that. And then everything stopped, which means that there were a lot of challenges that we had to face. And at that, we have to ask you guys, what are some of the challenges that you guys have faced or are currently facing? I know for me, I had 35 programs and activities like scheduled for March, and they all had canceled. And then kind of this thing that I like joke about, but not really, is like programming whiplash. Like I was go, 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 and then just hit a wall and everything stopped. And I know that for me, my teen engagement philosophy was being there, being present, being in a lot of ways trying to be the invitation for the kids to come into the library. And that's really hard to do when you don't have that contact with kids. And I mean, teens are hard enough to contact or to engage before you're in the middle of a pandemic. And then we were closed, as you guys all probably remember, and we first slid into curbside, which is great unless you can't get to the library. We're a bus stop at at my library, which means that a lot of the foot traffic with our young adults that come through are kids who get off on the bus, and that's how they get here. And then we kind of hit this, okay, we're going to do online programming. But by that point, the kids' school, they'd been in school, it had been all virtual, and they didn't want to be on their screens. And I didn't want to be this annoyance or this thing that made the kids feel like because they love the library, they have to do this thing. Like, they're already stressed enough. And so with all of that, everything happening, it kind of moved into, this is my Emily's pandemic feelings chart, because I will tell you what, it was a very emotional time, and it still is. I felt like it was so easy to do virtual programming for little kids, but almost impossible for teens, because I didn't know what I was doing. And then I was self-conscious. I know that when kids come in and they say, I'm going to be a YouTuber, I'm always like, that's not a real job, but okay, buddy, follow your dreams. But then I tried to do YouTube videos, and it's really hard. And it is a real job. I found it was something that I wasn't very good at. And then I was concerned about my kids. Were they okay? You know, I feel like when we work with teens are either really, really guarded, or they're really, really open. And we kind of learn about our kids, some things that they maybe share with us, or maybe they don't. And just that disconnection kind of leads you to go, I hope they're okay. And I was feeling really disconnected from my staff, from my building, my resources, and my community, my kids. And then I was kind of left at this point where I got excited anytime that I saw literally anybody, like another human person from 6 feet away in a mask. It was like, oh my gosh, can you believe it's another person? Like, hello. And I think the biggest thing was that I asked myself every day, am I doing enough, and am I failing my teens? And in like the height of the pandemic, where we're closed and I'm not seeing the kids, and I feel like I'm not doing a good enough job. I'm not fulfilling what the needs that my kids are, because I really don't understand their needs right now. I don't know what this all looks like for them, and I don't know what it looks like for me. And probably the most helpful thing was that my director in just a meeting had made this comment that out of all of us, the youth services staff really had a bigger shift, a bigger change, because our jobs really didn't share a lot of the same aspects that they had before. And just that acknowledgement and feeling seen in my struggle was something that made every day from that point forward a little bit better. But I think that when you are in a small community, and you already are facing so many of the challenges of like just trying to get kids through the door, once you don't have a door, you don't really know what to do next. And these are still challenges that I'm facing. These are still feelings that that are very prevalent, and not necessarily day to day, but some days more than others. And for me, that was my biggest pandemic problem, was trying to muster the confidence to try something new, because I just was frozen. I didn't know. Alicia?
You might be muted, Alicia.
Thank you for unmuting me. A microphone. I have this really great microphone that picks up every sound in the universe, and it puts this horrible echo on everybody else speaking. Sorry about that, guys. But Yeti Blue, it's great, isn't it? So I can tell you exactly when the pandemic wave hit our community and how hard it hit it, because it happened on the same day I had a huge program planned. You see, I learned from that Stranger Things escape room, the next time we do an escape room, we better go big. So I literally went out and found a historic landmark in the area. We took over the entire building. We were going to make a live action murder mystery with different outcomes and all kinds of NPCs that were dressed up as characters in this game throughout the building. It was going to be amazing. And this was on March 13th. So I asked my boss, And he said, shut it down. So, which if you know Andy Barnett, that's rare. He never says shut it down. And I had to stop everything right then and there and go home. I literally worked from home for 6 weeks. In our community, the mindset was to shelter in place. This could be the Black Plague. And we had complete community support, and we were thrilled with that. We were so happy to have that. And it was a time of just kind of sitting back and regrouping. And by May, we had developed a COVID-friendly service model. And this started with a curbside service model. Then we moved to an open but restricted model. So I had to create a SRP, summer reading program for teens that would reflect that with prizes, events, and an online game, which I had to tailor make just for my kids. So we started off again with a curbside, public not allowed into the building kind of opening. And then we did a soft opening even, so we wouldn't get blasted by a lot of people. We're very important to our community. People love to come here. People love to congregate here. So we wanted to make sure we didn't end up becoming a place of primary transmission. But by the end of June, we were open with restrictions. And so as you can see there, we were pivoting left and right, pivot, 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 open, close, curbside, open, open, you know. But when we opened, we were restricted for 6 months. Open but restricted means that we had first started with masks were strongly recommended, then we moved to required. We got rid of a lot of our seating, went to little to no seating, and we made changes to our code of conduct, encouraging people to socially distance. We had to get rid of our meeting rooms that were open to the public. In other words, they were no longer open to the public, and we now use those for staff breaks because we need to be socially distanced when we break. We had to close our coffee house, which was a lovely place people would come and hang out at. And I really learned to lean on my fellow teen librarians. No man is an island. Taylor Wilcox out of Wapaka started providing a monthly teen librarian get-together, and it has been a lifesaver. I highly recommend it because it allowed us to come together, share our feelings, share how we were, where we were emotionally, where we were physically in some cases, and what we were going to do to best serve our population. And you'd be surprised when many minds come together, there is wisdom. And so we, after Thanksgiving of 2020, we noticed a spike in the area, and we've been working pretty closely with our County Board of Health to find out what we should and should not do, what's the best way of doing things. We had implemented cleaning throughout the day. We were cleaning after, you know, we had hand sanitizing stations throughout the building, etc. But after Thanksgiving, we had such a spike in the area that we decided we were going to retreat to a curbside model. So with the full support of the board and I'll call it support from the community, not full support, folks, just support from the community. And with the County Board of Health saying, yep, that's probably a good idea, we went ahead back to a curbside model. But guess what? Come Monday, we're going to pivot again. We're open again with restrictions, but we have an ionizing air purifier. We've got, again, the hand sanitizing stations throughout the building. We feel that we're ready. We are decorating the place, make it as joyful as possible, and we're going to open again. So we just keep pivoting, keep moving with the pandemic, keep flowing, knowing, like Emily said, that each day brings its own new normal. And Kat, I think you have some thoughts.
Definitely. So I myself personally and MPL can relate to a lot of what Emily and Alicia had just mentioned. And plus, add on to that, we have a lot of the same problems as we had before. They're just exacerbated by the pandemic and made even more challenging. So with that, like everyone, the uncertainty, are we going to open? Should we open? Is it safe? Is it unsafe? As a city department, we go by the city rules. And so our admin was constantly in talks with the health department to figure out what to do. And as with many city departments, unfortunately, it's slow moving. So we didn't always get answers when we wanted them. And it's siloed. My manager has a manager who has a manager. So a lot of times it didn't feel like we got the answers as quickly as we wanted to. And we didn't really have as much input as we would, as everyone hopes to have. Because of all that, it leads to staff burnout. I think librarians are notorious for suffering from that compassion fatigue, for caring too much, and being expected to do a lot, and often things that are out of our wheelhouse and shouldn't be a responsibility of ours in the first place. And then you add on the work uncertainty with personal uncertainty, and it gets really tough. And then focusing back on the libraries, one of the big things that a big pandemic problem and a pre-pandemic problem is accessibility. So we are trying to offer all of these awesome things virtually, like programs and resources, but how do you make sure that your most vulnerable patrons and the patrons who could really use these services the most even get to see them? This is not a Milwaukee problem, but it's definitely a big Milwaukee only problem, I should say. But equity and access to technology. So the people of Milwaukee really rely on the libraries for computers, printers, Wi-Fi, and most importantly, the library staff to help navigate it all. But they can't get into the building. And even when they could, when we did open, we are open right now with restrictions, it's really not that safe. So we don't want a lot of those vulnerable populations to leave their homes. So that is the big question. How do we reach our patrons who don't have these resources? And especially bringing it back to teens, they're all screen timed out. They don't want to be in front of the computer anymore. So how do we get them to log back in? That is, I don't have the answers. I think that's a whole different presentation. I think I've watched like 5 of those accessibility presentations just in the past year, but nobody has the answer. But it's always something to think about. And that's something I have definitely been thinking about lately.
But with challenges come successes. I mean, no matter who you are, where you're from, you have faced some challenges, but you're still here. You're still showing up to work. You're still doing your job. And it's really important that you face those realities and you count your wins. So brag a little bit. Tell us, what are some of your pandemic wins? And I think it's time that we kind of regroup. Like, what is pandemic teen engagement? What does it look like? We're still doing all of these things, but we're also adding something. Kat, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so one of the big focuses of MPL is to make sure we're providing out-of-school learning for teens and initiating technology programming and promoting online learning. So that is how, moving forward, we took a look at the offerings that we're doing virtually and trying to think of things that they're still learning, they're still doing fun things out of school, but that are still fun and exciting that make them want to check back in and log back on to the library.
Right. So we're going to share a little bit of ours. I do one thing in my library. I have one teen engagement thing that seems to work really well with my community that encompasses all of those checklists. And instead of going and comparing myself to what I was doing before, I throw my heart into this. We do something at my library called a Barrett book drop, where it's a library subscription box. And I send a link to my teachers, to all of the kids who have signed up. It links to a Google Sheet where I ask the kids, they sign up, and I ask them to tell me what kind of media they're consuming, what books do they like, what kind of book would they like, and then I use my amazing library deduction skills to find a book that I think will fit that kid's want for the month. And I've had great success. I've had 60 kids sign up for this, and in my tiny little community, like, that's a gigantic win. Granted, that's from September to February, but still, like, so excited. And I have found that through this, I am able to communicate with the kids. I used to know faces, but now and not names, and now I know names, and these are all like faceless children that I know that, like, so-and-so really likes dystopian, and that kid over there, whatever they look like, really loves a romantic, rom-com kind of book. So it's really interesting to get to know my community in this way of like what they're actually consuming, what they're interested in. And what's great is that these kids hear from me a million times a day through their school emails, and that was really dramatic. I don't stalk their emails, I promise, but I do send them links. I remind them that their books are coming due. I check in and see what they like. I ask for feedback. And through this, I'm also able to teach the kids good library etiquette, which is great. I mean, they are checking their books. They've learned how to use our website. They have kind of taken the ownership of this. And part of this, like, taking up my time is that each different bag each month has a different theme. And that bag my kids aren't only getting books, they're also getting handmade bookmarks. And we've got a button maker, and I make buttons and magnets and fill the bags with trinkets. Thank you, dollar store. Like, so helpful, because kids get excited to get anything, even if it's just like from a 6-pack from the dollar store. And I fill these bags, and then I take them up to the school. This is what's so awesome, is that Those relationships that I had been working really hard to build within my community, with my teachers and education staff, they are helping me. The teachers pass out the bags in class, and I've really found that this is the one way that I've kind of been able to solve that no building, no problem. We're partnering with the school still. We're making the library accessible. We're making connections, and we're embracing the stereotype that I tried so hard to run away from, that libraries are about books, but it's also about the experience of filling out the thing and thinking about what you want to read and getting the bag and having something each month to look at provided by our library. I know that we're getting close on time, so I'm going to pass it over to Kat or Alicia. Gosh darn it, I'm sorry.
Yes,
I know.
pass it to me, the one who talks the most. That's a good idea. No. So yeah, you know, during the pandemic, thank you, Emily. We had programming. We were programming the whole time, really, except for the first few months. If you're following along with all the different programs we were doing at Macmillan, please be aware that I couldn't quite pull off the anime club anymore in the theater, having a bunch of people eating pizza together. No, we couldn't quite pull that one off again. So I have never had a successful book club before, but I had such an ask from the community for it. We had to start one. So in place of the anime club in your minds mentally, just replace it with book club, because our book club really took off. I teamed up with Parks and Rec to do outside programming. So we would meet at a park and we would do lots of interactive activities related to whatever book we were doing. And we would have a great time. And as the winter months came on, like I said before, we had a fireplace as things were getting cooler and cooler. But at a certain point, we had to give it up and go to a Zoom meeting. The kids are not happy. They can't wait for the Zoom meetings to end. In fact, when I said, we only have one more Zoom meeting, then we can meet in person outdoors, they were very happy to hear that. But we meet on Zoom, and we have online games. And again, I didn't know about all the possibilities we could have for online games until I met with other teen librarians with our monthly meetup. And I'm so grateful to Taylor Wilcox out at Wapaka for having that once a month, because without that, yeah, we would be so frustrated. And yes, I see that Laura suggests a book club with the anime club, creating a manga club. I tried floating that one out there too before the pandemic hit. But no, I have a plan for the anime club, and it's going to be Zoom, and it's going to start next month. And hopefully it'll go well. I really do. But we buy the books new, so the kids get to keep the books. And like Emily, you throw some treats in that bag when they get their books, and they pick it up at curbside, and boom, there you go. Yeah, we would meet outside on library grounds as well. We really had a lot of buy-in from the community, and so that made it a lot easier to do. Now the knitting club, again, they were coming together, sitting around the table together, talking, not gonna work during a pandemic. So the knitting club morphed into the knitting challenge, which basically was me learning different knitting challenges and learning them on Facebook Lives. The kids could watch and laugh. Yes, indeed. And we were still giving away the materials for free. What you're looking at right there in that image is a blue cushion knit by one of our kids. And we basically give away the materials for free and then do it live on camera for Facebook Live, and then edit the videos and post them on our YouTube. So guess what, folks? Adobe skill level increased. Non-existent YouTube skill level created. I had to learn quite a bit, but it was worth it. I even, invested in Ulta so I wouldn't scare the children with my face. Yes, I covered this with makeup people. Anyway, we also had cultural events planned. But guess what? Our Hmong cultural event that we had planned for April 2020, you can guess what happened to it. It got canceled. But we're still keeping our community connections and looking to the future, even though, no, we haven't really done a lot with community cultural events. We've got folks who want to, and we're looking forward to using our theater possibly to do some stuff with the Ho Chunk folks. Go ahead and click forward. So our special events moved outside or moved online. What you're looking at there is an image of our Civil War bike tour. We worked with frustrated reenactors, Civil War reenactors at our local museum to provide a bike tour around the community that showed folks how our city was played a pivotal part in the Civil War. And we did Zoom events. So for example, there's no comedy clubs you can really go to, folks. So we have created a kind of a situation where we bring the comedy club to you. And we got a teen-friendly comedian, Jaron Myers, to host a program with me, and we made it as fun and engaging as possible. We had hundreds of people come to this, and it was a lot of fun. And we're going to do it again in March, but this time we're going to do a game show hosted by, again, the great comedian Jaron Myers. So for our gaming programs, we could no longer do the multiple screens with lots of food, hanging out and having a good time. But because, again, you guys are going to get tired of hearing this name, because of Taylor Wilcox, she showed me how to set up a Discord, and I was able to get some team volunteers to help me make that a safe place to be. We took our gaming program from being a physical thing to being an online program. And we also have an outdoor escape room. It's a no-touch, socially distanced program anyone 11 and up could do. And that allowed people to come and have a great time and still be safe. So our gaming programs went from being close and intimate to being a little more distance, but still a lot of fun. And I think Kat wants to tell you about what they did.
Yes. So pandemic teen engagement here at MPL, frankly, has been a big struggle. We have been completely virtual from mid-March 2020, and we will be virtual for the foreseeable future. Yep, even through the summer. I think that was a tough decision, but it was pretty freeing, actually. We did not have to waffle between, oh, maybe I'll be able to do that in person, or maybe I won't. So my brain fully switched to virtual programming, and that's made it a little bit easier. So with that, we have still struggled a little bit with doing live versus recorded programming for teens. We initially started trying to do live programming and found that was not working. Recorded has been best for us. So recorded on demand, it kind of lets teens choose when they want to watch, and it's easier to share too. It's really nice to be able to send links to teachers and partner organizations. And another kind of newish to us has been increasing our use of social media platforms and new technology platforms. We have our own communications and marketing department and social media team. So they used to make all of the social media posts, but now we have librarian staff and library staff led and teen led social media posts, which has been really great. And so with these virtual programs, they've gone virtual and it's been pretty successful. Our Teen Summer Challenge went okay. I think this year will be better. Some of our upcoming programs are virtual, and TAB went virtual, and I think moving forward will be hybrid. So all of our recruitment, all our meetings, everything for TAB 2020 to 2021 has been virtual. Applications though were the same requirements for age and location. And this year we had 22 viable applicants. That was a drop from 2019, but I would say the quality of the apps was fantastic. We had 8 returning members and welcomed 7 new members. So with these TAB folks, they can still earn volunteer credit and their stipend. We just had to switch up our requirements a little bit. So now they must attend 2 required virtual meetings, 1 per semester, toward 1 at the beginning of each. And they have to complete 3 of 7 engagement options. And these are what I'm most excited about. Just for time's sake, you can read them, and I'll just touch on a couple that are my favorites. Definitely my favorite so far is the MPL Teen Social Media Takeover. It's where we have our TAB members create social media posts that go either on our main Facebook accounts or on our Instagram, things like that. We do have a teen-specific Instagram account. It's at Teens of MPL, so check us out and follow us. And that's been so fun to see what the TAB members come up with. They've created 1-minute videos encouraging other teens to vote and get involved in their community. They've created book talks, and most recently, one TAB member created a post pairing young adult book titles with songs from Taylor Swift's new album, Evermore. Like, that's something I would never be able to think of, but that is something that she did, and we were able to share, and it's been great. They're also, all of our meetings now are virtual. They're still happening once a month, only for an hour via Zoom. So that's been fun to get them to attend and engage, and they've had great attendance. But so far, these engagement options have really been working for TAB, and it's been a fun way to pivot.
So I think that as we've kind of worked our way through the pandemic up until this point, we have all found these things that, like, we know are working for us now that we can make work for us as we move into that glorious post-pandemic world that we all can't wait for. And so this is the time for you to share. What are some of the things that you have found and learned that you're going to take with you as you move forward? And I think that through any struggle or hardship, there's always something that comes out of it. And these are some of the things that we're taking with us as we move forward.
Personally, yeah, some actionable takeaways is we're going to keep recording programs. It's so easy now to just pop up a phone or a camera and record that program, even if it's something we're doing live. I think that is something that can be accessible later and shared later. That'll be really great. I also hope we keep that increased use of library staff created and team created social media posts. Frankly, they are less formulaic than some of the stuff that's usually posted. They're more fun and creative. They get to the heart of what teens really care about, and they get our best engagement. And then I think that some programs will stay virtual or will go hybrid. I've had great success with some of our biggest programs going completely virtual, more than they were in person. So that is something I'm thinking about moving forward.
Go ahead.
Oh, and also I'll talk quickly about increasing partnerships with outside organizations. That's something that we've been able to do. We've been able to connect with organizations that logistically we couldn't before, either because of distance or time and scheduling. So that's been really great to beef up those partnerships.
And I know for one of the big takeaways that I have learned is that there are ways operating without a building, because my library is still operating on curbside and you can come in by appointment. But but there are still some things that, like, we are learning to take the library into the community, especially really what I mean for my teens. I'm taking the library up to the school, and I'll continue to do that. I'll continue to find ways to make the library something that feels like it meets the teens where they're at versus having them come to us. And then there are some professional takeaways. Collaborations are wonderful. Kat,
I'll touch on that. One good thing about the pandemic, as far as MPL is concerned, I think, is that we are now operating sort of as one giant branch. So I feel like with Youth Services, at least, we have never been more collaborative than we are right now, being able to work with our colleagues and come up with programs. There's no branch-specific programming. It is just a program that we are having. So that's been really fun. And it's encouraged us to try new things and get out of the box. It's a lot easier to try a new program when you're not sitting there in a room by yourself and no one shows up. It's a little bit easier to record it and throw it out there. So that's been kind of fun.
We'll continue to cultivate relationships with our educators. I think that if you know a teacher, you know that this has not been an easy time for anybody, but educators really, like us, kind of got thrown for a loop there. And I think having that check-in, that relationship is something that I hope to really move forward. And I hope that we can all do that no matter what our size. And finally, self-check-ins, staff check-ins. I know that it was really wonderful for me to have like a weekly meeting with my other youth services staff, or think about things for myself and just give myself that permission to acknowledge whatever it was I was feeling, whatever it was that as a staff we were feeling. And I think that that is not and does not just have to be a pandemic procedure. I think that is something that really I hope we move into youth services culture, because we don't do that enough. So there's that. And I think now we're thinking about, how do we rebuild this post-pandemic world? Alicia, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, I love history and I love analogies, because I like to look at where we've been and how we go forward. And I want you guys to follow with me on this analogy. Come on, folks, stay with me here. I want you to think about this. We're in the trenches right now. We're in the mud, we're working, but mud is a basic material. Think about your basics. And let's look at taking that basic material like the ancients did in ancient Egypt and build on that. They took mud and built something called a mastaba. That's what you see in that far left image. The mastaba was a building that was built to honor their kings. Now, from that basic material, the Egyptians built something beautiful. And from that basic shape, they started to stack. And like them, we can build greater and greater. The ancient Egyptians stacked mastaba on top of mastaba, creating step pyramids. Build on every mud-built victory. Build on every victory you have had during this pandemic. Build it higher, stronger, better. Now, what was the product after all of this hard work on these hard-won mud brick victories? A wonder of the world. That last image you're looking at are the pyramids at Giza. We can create beautiful things, starting with the basics, combining our strategies. we can build something that stands the test of time. Don't look back and say, oh gosh, this is so simple, or oh gosh, I messed this up. Look forward and know that you're building something that will be beautiful and wonderful, and something that folks will appreciate as time goes forward.
We don't have a ton of time, but questions? Also, like a shout out to the Teen Librarian Virtual Meetup. And if you are not a WLA member, please consider doing that and joining the Youth Services section, because there's so many amazing people within our community that really lend so much to that. So questions?
Great, thank you. And just Joy put a link to the information about the Teen Librarian Virtual Meetup in the chat. So if you're wondering where to get that, take a peek at that. We did get a couple requests, Emily, for your form that you use. So if it's possible to share that, maybe we can share that, and we can put it on the website after.
Yep, absolutely.
That sound okay? Okay, great.
Absolutely.
Then we had let's see. We had, sorry about this. I know time is of the essence. That's why I can't find the question. One question about just when there are several opportunities in a medium-sized community, the YMCA and other organizations, any tips for just getting the library in the rotation of meaningful engagement for teens?
Well, what I do is I literally go walk over to the YMCA and say, hi, what are we doing, guys? And because we're really big on community engagement here at Macmillan, my boss is 100% behind me going out in the community and engaging with folks. And so that's what I do. I go out and say, hey, what do you guys need? What's going on? And I think it's really important that you meet people at the point of their need, that you don't come in and say, hey, I got this program, implement it. You need to see where your community has needs and fill those needs in. Libraries are flexible places. We can do a lot. We have a lot of different opportunities that we can take advantage of just because of who we are. And as long as we keep that open mind, when we go in there to ask them, hi, how are you doing? How can we help you? Well, I think that will make a huge difference in our communities. Did that answer the question?
Very much so. I think that was great. I have one more. Those of you who do have teen advisory boards or who have had them and volunteers, do you have an option for teens who don't have enough time to commit to TAB but want to volunteer or get involved in some way?
I can touch on that really quick. One thing I wish I'd put on my slides is that here at MPL, we have something called like tiers of involvement as far as teen engagement goes. So kind of on that first tier is where teens can just volunteer their time. For example, if they don't have a lot of time to dedicate or they want to just earn volunteer credit, they just need like 2 hours. They can reach out to the library. We have a volunteer coordinator who runs through everything, and they can volunteer at a single program or just a certain day of the week for a couple hours. If they do have a little bit more time to give, they could become a TAB member. They will get a little bit of compensation for their time. It just is more of a commitment. And then if they really want to be involved, they can level up, so to speak, and become that paid intern and actually make it a job. So we like to have those options so teens can self-select their involvement based on their availability and interest. And we do have teens who start as volunteers and they kind of work their way up. So it's also a good way to gauge who might be a great TAB member or eventual intern.
Cool, thank you very much. I think we are just about at time, so I want to just say thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Emily, Alicia, and Kat. That was fantastic. And hope that folks will answer the survey that's going to be coming to you. And all of this great information is going to be up on the website, the Wild Wisconsin website, by tomorrow. So the recording and the slides, which are a thing of beauty, will be up by tomorrow sometime. And the subscription box interest form will be, we'll get that from Emily, and hopefully we can have that on there as well. And those of you who are available. At 2:30, we have our closing session with Beck Tench about staying true to yourself in stressful times. If you haven't experienced Beck Tench, I highly recommend it. She's wonderful. And if you can't make it, then maybe you'll be able to listen to the recording. And I hope you all have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.